Hey everyone, welcome back to Six Path Weeb, your go-to realm for all things anime and wild what-ifs. Today's fanfic twist is one that might make some of you gasp. What if Naruko was banned from eating ramen? Forever? Yeah, we're diving deep into a world where Ichiraku is off limits, and our favorite kunoichi has to face her greatest challenge yet, trying other food. Disclaimer. All content on this channel is purely for entertainment and fan discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage shown here. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's dive in, guys. It was the perfect start to another beautiful morning in the Hidden Leaf Village. Birds chirped cheerfully as the sun gently rose above the rooftops, casting a warm glow across Konoha. The village's dedicated shinobi were beginning to wake, ready to take on the day's challenges with determination and pride. Everything seemed set for a peaceful and promising day, until an unexpected announcement caused a sudden stir. What? Are you serious? You're going on vacation? Exclaimed Naruko Uzumaki, the spirited and energetic ninja known for her unwavering enthusiasm and strong-willed nature. Though still officially ranked as a Genin, Naruko was regarded as one of Konoha's most exceptional shinobi. Nearly 2 years had passed since she returned from an intensive 3-year training journey alongside the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya. Since then, she had taken part in numerous high-level missions, often encountering members of the now disbanded Akatsuki, a once feared organization that sought the powerful spirit sealed within her. Fortunately for the village, peace returned when the group's mysterious leader passed away due to an illness, causing the remaining members to scatter and lose direction. Thanks to this fortunate turn of events, Konoha had been enjoying a peaceful era. The Sound Village, once a threat under the command of Orochimaru, vanished after rumors spread that he was defeated in a battle with Sasuke Uchiha, a former ally of the village who had left in pursuit of personal goals. Growing up, Naruko experienced a lonely childhood. As an orphan, she often felt misunderstood and isolated, lacking the guidance many others had. However, after enrolling in the Ninja Academy, she slowly began to find her place and form friendships. Among those connections, one stood out, her longtime crush, Sakura Haruno. Sakura, a highly skilled medical ninja, trained directly under the 5th Hokage, Tsunade. She was known for her vibrant personality and strong sense of justice. Though her interactions with Naruko were often filled with light-hearted bickering, Naruko never gave up on trying to get closer to her. Interestingly, while Naruko continued to pursue Sakura's attention, she remained unaware of someone else's quiet admiration, Hyuga Hinata. Hinata, the gentle and kind-hearted heiress of the prestigious Hyuga clan, had admired Naruko from afar for as long as she could remember. Shy and soft-spoken, Hinata often struggled to express her feelings directly, leading to many moments where Naruko misinterpreted her behavior as simply nervous or unusual. If Naruko ever realized the depth of Hinata's affection, she would discover someone who admired her deeply and wholeheartedly. But with Hinata's head down in uncertainty and Naruko's in the clouds, their paths of understanding had yet to meet. As for the rest of the Konoha 11, life continued as usual, with the exception of Sasuke's absence. The young shinobi of the village carried out their missions with loyalty and purpose. Now that we're all caught up, let's return to the commotion Naruko was causing. At 18 years old, she remained as passionate and loud as ever, especially when surprised by unexpected news. Yes, Naruko, I believe it's time we took a little journey to explore the country for a while. Just 2 or 3 months, I'm sure you'll manage just fine, said the kindly old man, squinting in the sunlight. I don't know, old man. I went 3 whole years without it before, and it was almost unbearable. Oh come now, Naruko, it couldn't have been that serious, he chuckled gently. It was. I can't live without Ichiraku's ramen, Naruko exclaimed passionately. Chuchi, the owner of the beloved ramen stand, simply smiled warmly as he helped his daughter Ayame load her luggage into the small horse-drawn carriage. Don't worry, you've still got instant ramen at home. I know it's not quite the same, but it should tide you over. And when we get back, your first meal is on the house, eat as much as you want. Naruko's eyes sparkled with joy as she tried to hold back a happy sniffle. Really? Absolutely. I have to make it up to my most loyal customer, don't I? Naruko nodded excitedly as the coach started rolling out through the village gates. She waved enthusiastically until the carriage disappeared beyond the horizon. All right, Naruko declared with determination. Time to get myself some ramen. I don't have any left at home, so I'd better restock. With her usual carefree stride, hands behind her head, Naruko made her way to her favorite grocery store. She headed straight for the familiar aisle where her treasured ramen was always stocked. Stopping in front of the shelf, She reached out to grab her usual beef and chicken flavors, only to find nothing. Huh? What? She muttered, then blinked. The shelf was completely empty. This can't be, Naruko gasped, looking around in disbelief. The shelves to the left held soups. The shelves to the right still had pasta. But her ramen? Nowhere in sight. Just to be sure, she focused her chakra and performed a small technique meant to dispel illusions. When she opened her eyes again, the shelf was still bare. No, Naruko cried out dramatically, dropping to her knees in the middle of the aisle. The store owner hurried out from the back, concerned by the commotion, only to find Naruko frozen in front of the empty shelf. She quickly stood up, walked over to the man, and grasped the front of his shirt in sheer desperation. Please tell me you have more. This has to be a mistake. There must be more ramen somewhere. The owner gently pried her hands off, fixed his shirt, and gave her a sympathetic smile. Sorry, Naruko. We're completely sold out. We had a large supply, but it went faster than expected. The next shipment won't arrive for about 3 months. Isn't there any way to get it sooner? I wish I could, but there's nothing I can do right now. This is a disaster, Naruko exclaimed, running out of the store in a blur. She checked every store across Konoha, only to find the same answer at each one: no ramen. Eventually, the energetic ninja burst into the office of Lady Tsunade, who had been peacefully dozing at her desk. Granny Tsunade, Naruko yelled, startling the Hokage awake. Papers flew everywhere, and one stuck to her cheek. She pulled it off with a sigh, then fixed her eyes on Naruko. Naruko. What's the matter with you barging in like this? It's an emergency. The worst thing ever has happened. There's no ramen left in the entire village. Everything is falling apart, the world is doomed, there's no hope. Before Naruko could finish her spiraling rant, Tsunade reached across the desk and gave her a gentle but firm tap on the cheek. Calm down. So let me get this straight, you're saying the village is completely out of ramen? Yes. And Ichiraku is gone on vacation with Ayame for 2 or 3 months. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Really? So tell me, how long have you gone without ramen in the past 5 years? Maybe a week while training with Jiraiya-sensei. He said too much ramen would stunt my growth. But after that, he let me have it every other day. Interesting. Well, I can't do anything to fix the shortage immediately. Come back tomorrow, and I'll see what we can do. But no excuses, now go, Tsunade said firmly, and Naruko quickly left the room. Despite being a highly skilled ninja, she knew better than to challenge the Hokage when she was this serious. Shizune. Please get Jiraiya in here right away. If he hesitates, tell him I'll cancel his access to all the bathhouses in Konoha. Yes, Tsunade-sama, Shizune replied. Surprisingly, Jiraiya appeared almost instantly, as if the very idea of losing his relaxation spots had sparked instant motivation. Jiraiya, Tsunade began, I need to talk to you about Naruko's training. Specifically, what happened when she didn't have her usual ramen? I don't see how that's important, Jiraiya replied with some frustration. It is, because Konoha is officially out of ramen. Jiraiya's eyes widened, and he accidentally dropped his beloved notebook, suddenly looking very concerned. Oh no. What do you mean, oh no? Tsunade asked, eyeing him carefully. Well, you remember when I told you about the first time Naruko accessed the Four Tails chakra mode and things got out of control? That happened on the 10th day without ramen. Tsunade gave him a skeptical look. And you think that's related to her diet? Have you seen the ingredients in instant ramen? It's not exactly balanced. I once told her it was affecting her development, and I meant it. There's something in it that seems to act as a temporary hormonal stabilizer. When she stops eating it for long enough, her body tries to rebalance itself, quickly and, well, intensely. Tsunade frowned. So you're saying that once the 10 days pass, Naruko experiences a sudden spike in energy and emotions? Exactly. The 9 tails amplifies everything, too, so her senses, reactions, and feelings all become much stronger. It's like her body tries to compensate for the imbalance. And you're suggesting that it could affect her behavior? Potentially, yes. She might become more irritable or impulsive. But I'd guess that after 60 to 90 days without something to stabilize those effects, it could become very difficult for her to control. Tsunade folded her arms and sighed, clearly troubled. So we have a little over a month to either find more ramen or create an alternative solution to keep her stable, correct? That's right. Or at least we can help manage it by keeping her physically and mentally active. More training, missions, and things like that might help ease the pressure. There is absolutely no way I'd allow anything inappropriate as part of a solution, Tsunade said sternly. Naruko deserves better than that. Fair enough, Jiraiya replied with a shrug. Still, she's got just enough creativity to invent some rather unexpected techniques, but not quite enough mischief to use them recklessly. What a unique kid. He gave a small smile and quietly left the Hokage's office, leaving Tsunade deep in thought. Naruko was wandering around the village of Konoha with no particular destination in mind. Her usual energy seemed missing, replaced by a quiet, slow pace as she shuffled her sandals across the dirt paths. Her bright blonde hair, typically full of life, seemed a little dull today. With her favorite ramen shop temporarily closed, she was clearly feeling down, her eyes fixed on the ground as she kicked small clouds of dust with each step. She wasn't paying attention to where she was walking and accidentally bumped into a girl with bubblegum pink hair. "Hey, watch where you're going," Sakura exclaimed, startled by the collision. It was clear she hadn't been paying attention either. "Oh. Sorry, Sakura-chan," Naruko muttered, keeping her gaze low. Sakura's tone softened when she noticed her friend's expression. "Oh, Naruko. You alright? You seem kinda down." "Yeah. Ichiraku's is closed," she said quietly. Sakura raised an eyebrow. "Oh. Well, maybe it's time to try something new? A little change could be good. I guess. But it's supposed to be 3 months before it reopens. I barely made it a week without ramen last time," Naruko sighed. Sakura's eyes widened. 3 months? That's rough. That's like me wearing the same outfit for days on end, unbearable. Naruko actually smiled a little at Sakura's attempt to relate. "Well, good luck, Naruko," Sakura said, offering a small wave before walking off. Her words, though well-meaning, didn't quite bring comfort. The smile on Naruko's face faded as quickly as it came, and with a small sigh, she continued walking. Before long, she found herself standing in front of the closed Ichiraku's ramen. She sat beneath a nearby tree and stared at the empty stand, the silence around her echoing how she felt inside. Just as she sat lost in thought, she caught a glimpse of someone with dark hair disappearing behind a nearby building. "Naruko. I hate seeing you so down. I want to be someone who can lift your spirits. I can do this." Hinata quietly encouraged herself as she peeked from her hiding place. Gathering every bit of courage she had, she stepped forward, shy but determined. "And Naruko-chan," she said softly. Naruko looked up and immediately brightened a little at the sight of Hinata. Despite her usual reserved nature, Hinata had become one of the most graceful and strong kunoichi in their generation. Though she still wore her modest jacket and capri-style pants, it was clear she carried herself with quiet strength. Her kind eyes always seemed to notice the things others didn't. "Hey, Hinata. What brings you out here?" Naruko asked, doing her best to sound cheerful. "And nothing really. I just happened to see you sitting here. Is everything okay?" Hinata's voice was gentle and filled with concern. Naruko sighed. She knew there was no point hiding how she felt. "Well, there's no ramen in the village right now. Ichiraku's is closed, and we haven't had any missions lately, so I can't even go find another place that has it." Hinata tilted her head. "Why ramen, though? There are so many other foods you could enjoy." Naruko gave a small nod. "I know. It's just. Ramen was all I could really afford before I became a ninja. It became something special. And there were times I wasn't exactly welcomed in a lot of places." Hinata's expression softened even more. "I have some places don't treat you kindly. Maybe I could come with you? People don't usually turn away someone from the Hyuga clan." Naruko was touched by the offer. A few years ago, Hinata would have fainted from just speaking a sentence like that. Now, though still shy, she was clearly growing more confident. "That's really kind of you, Hinata. But I wouldn't want to rely on someone's name to get treated fairly." "I understand," Hinata nodded, sitting down beside her. A rosy blush colored her cheeks, but she didn't shy away. "Still, sometimes it's a little amusing to see how quickly people change their attitude when they realize they're being watched by someone important." She gave a quiet giggle. Naruko looked at her, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Hinata, I didn't think you'd say something like that." "What do you mean?" Hinata asked innocently. "You seem to enjoy seeing others flustered by your presence." "That's not very kind," Hinata said, realizing how it sounded as the words left her mouth. She immediately began waving her hands nervously. "And no. And not like that," she stammered. "I only speak up when someone's treating others poorly or acting rudely." Naruko felt a quiet sense of relief. Hinata was still the considerate, kind person she had always known. That reassurance gave Naruko pause. Why was she even feeling relieved? Well, I suppose that's not so bad then. So, would you ever consider spending time with someone like me? And Naruko-chan, I'd really like that, Hinata replied shyly. Huh? Naruko asked, slightly confused. Hinata buried her face in her coat, blushing even more than before. I just mean. I think it would be nice if we spent time together. Naruko couldn't quite figure out why Hinata was so red in the face, but she'd learned by now not to mention it. Commenting only seemed to make it worse. Yeah. We're teammates, after all. And friends? Hinata asked hopefully. Naruko smiled warmly. That too, Hinata. You're definitely a friend. Naruko stood up and offered her hand to help Hinata to her feet. Hinata took it happily, her blush still lingering. So, where should we go? Naruko asked, not realizing she hadn't let go of Hinata's hand. Hinata noticed, of course, and smiled gently, tightening her grip. Oh, sorry, Naruko muttered, finally letting go. Hinata was quietly disappointed. It's fine, she said, hoping that someday they'd hold hands again. There's a place not too far from here that has really great food. Sounds good, lead the way. As they walked through the village, they got a few curious glances, but nothing that interrupted their casual chatter. A short walk later, they arrived at a cozy, rustic-looking restaurant with wooden floors and charming decor. It looked busy, but before long a hostess approached them. Ah, Hyuga-sama. It's lovely to see you again. Your table will be ready in just a moment, the hostess said with a polite bow. Hinata nodded in return, waiting quietly. A minute later, the hostess returned. Your table is ready. Naruko was impressed by the warm welcome Hinata received. As they began following the hostess, she suddenly stopped and turned to Naruko. Can I help you, miss? She asked, her tone surprisingly dismissive. She's with me. Is there a problem? Hinata responded calmly but firmly, with no trace of hesitation. Well, it's just that our policy. You are free to make your choice, Hinata interrupted kindly, but if you choose to refuse service to her, you'll also be refusing service to me. I hope you're prepared to explain that decision to the Hyuga clan. The hostess immediately quieted and paled slightly before continuing to escort them to their table. Once seated, their menus were placed in front of them. Thanks for standing up like that, Hinata. You really didn't have to. And no, I did. It just wasn't right. Well, thank you. By the way, why do you always stutter around me, when you spoke so confidently just now? Well. Hinata fidgeted nervously with her fingers, her face still warm. Naruko gently reached over and took her hands, pulling them apart. Never mind, I'm sorry for asking. So, what's good here? She asked, turning to her menu. And no, it's okay. Why, you can ask again another time. Hinata looked up and Naruko caught something new in her eyes, something bright and sincere. It made her smile. You should try the sweet and sour chicken. It's their best dish. Well, if you say it's good, I believe you. Naruko closed the menu without even looking at the rest and took a sip of water. Hinata smiled behind her own menu, stealing glances at Naruko every now and then. What can I get for you two? Their waitress asked. She clearly recognized them but only smiled politely at Hinata. We'll both have the sweet and sour chicken, please, Hinata said as she handed over the menus. Coming right up. The waitress gave a quick smile and disappeared into the kitchen. I don't like how people treat you sometimes, Naruko-chan. It's something I've gotten used to over the years, Naruko said softly. Hinata shook her head. And no. I don't think you really have. Naruko stared into her water glass, pondering Hinata's words. She couldn't argue. You always notice things others don't, she murmured. Sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. Hinata looked down, saddened. No need to apologize. I imagine being the heiress of such a strict family isn't easy either. Maybe we're more alike than we realize. Maybe. Hinata echoed, both of them lost in thought until the waitress returned with their meals. Here you go. Enjoy, she said cheerfully before walking off. Naruko inhaled the aroma and took her first bite, only for her expression to shift in surprise. So, how is it? Hinata asked. Naruko set her chopsticks down. Not what I expected. It's not very tasty. Really? Mine's fine. Hinata took a bite from Naruko's plate out of curiosity, only to quickly grab her napkin. Oh, yours is really not good. I didn't want to be rude, that's why I didn't say anything. Hinata blushed and smiled gently. Well, try some of mine. She slid her plate closer, and Naruko took a bite. Her eyes lit up at the flavor. This is amazing, Hinata. That's okay, go ahead. I'm not feeling very hungry right now, Naruko said with a soft smile. You sure? He asked, looking at her warmly. That kind expression was all she needed. I'm sure. I usually don't eat much anyway, she replied, cheeks slightly tinted with a blush. All right then, but if you change your mind, feel free to grab a bite. He immediately began eating with enthusiasm while Hinata watched with a smile, clearly enjoying the moment. Within a few minutes, all the food had disappeared, leaving both of them satisfied. That was probably even better than ramen, he said with a happy sigh. I'm glad you all liked it. I should probably head home, so let's get going, okay? Sure thing, Hinata. But what about paying? Naruko asked, unsure if she should handle the bill or not. It's taken care of. They owed my family a small favor, so we can call it even. Alright, sounds good. Let's get going, Naruko said, standing up and waiting for Hinata before they both exited the restaurant together, smiling. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind them, Hey, you there? Naruko turned around to see someone from the restaurant heading toward them with urgency. Hinata. They don't actually owe your family, do they? Naruko asked, raising an eyebrow slightly. And no. But they didn't treat you fairly during lunch. I see, couldn't let that slide, Hinata admitted, glancing down shyly. Naruko smiled gently, then stepped forward to give her a quick, supportive hug. You're amazing. Go ahead now, if anything comes up, they'll probably talk to me about it, so don't worry. With that, Naruko dashed off in the opposite direction, drawing attention away from Hinata. The staff member followed her, while Hinata stayed behind, a soft smile on her face. Well, maybe it wasn't all for nothing. Hopefully, this helps bring about some positive changes, she murmured to herself as she made her way to the Hokage Tower, intending to file a complaint about the restaurant's unfair treatment of Naruko. Naruko had a surprisingly peaceful sleep that night, for reasons she couldn't quite explain. However, she didn't dwell on it. Today was a new day, and she was determined to find out if there was any news about her favorite food, ramen. Since she was out of her usual stock, she decided to skip breakfast and dashed off toward the Hokage's office to see what updates there might be. Hey, Granny Tsunade. She called out cheerfully as she entered the office rather loudly, unintentionally startling Tsunade, who had dozed off amidst a towering pile of paperwork. Not so loud, Naruko. It's too early for that kind of energy, I'm not even fully awake yet, Tsunade said, rubbing her eyes and realizing she had been facing the wrong way. It's already 9 in the morning, Granny. I've been up for hours training. Naruko replied with a wide grin. That's great, but I'm guessing you didn't come here just to chat. Nope. I came to ask about ramen. Did you find anything? Tsunade gave her a sympathetic look. I'm afraid I've got some unfortunate news. The ramen shortage seems to be affecting the entire region, and since the kind you love is mostly unique to our village, you may be out of luck for a while. Naruko's expression dropped slightly but quickly bounced back with determination. That's disappointing, but I've been learning there are other foods out there that are pretty tasty too, I just haven't found one I'm not biased against yet. Well, I've got a suggestion. Until Ichiraku's opens again, why don't you come to the Hokage estate for lunch? The staff there can prepare anything you'd like, except ramen, of course. Really? Thank you so much. Of course. Don't mention it. But I'll need you to come to the hospital around noon for a quick checkup to monitor how the nine-tail seal is functioning. Naruko groaned a little at the mention of a hospital visit but quickly nodded. Alright, Granny Tsunade. See you later. With that, Naruko rushed off toward her favorite training ground. She spent nearly 4 hours working with her shadow clones, pushing herself hard before making her way to the hospital. As usual, she headed to her reserved room. She was a frequent visitor due to her intense training schedule, and found Tsunade and Shizune waiting for her. You're late, Naruko. Take a seat, we just need to run a few tests, Tsunade said as Shizune prepared a needle. Yes, Lady Tsunade, Shizune replied, gently taking a blood sample from Naruko. After a few more routine checks, the visit was complete. I'll need to see you again in about 10 days to follow up and compare the results. For now, you're good to go. Alright. Back to training, then, since I'm not on any missions, Naruko said with a smile as she headed out the door, full of energy and determination. 12 days without ramen. 10 more days passed, and Naruko's routine remained consistent. She would wake up early, train hard, have lunch at the Hokage estate, then return to training in the afternoon. Unknown to her, Hinata continued to quietly admire her from a distance. Despite not having spoken to Naruko since their last outing, Hinata's feelings hadn't changed, she just needed a bit more time to regain her courage. Interestingly, Hinata's favorite restaurant had closed down a few days after their lunch. She suspected the building's condition may have had something to do with it, but she wasn't upset. In fact, she felt relieved, not wanting to support a place that hadn't shown Naruko the kindness she deserved. Meanwhile, Tsunade had just completed her analysis of Naruko's latest checkup and was a bit concerned with what she discovered. She decided to consult Jiraiya for his insight on the changes she found. "Hey Tsunade," Jiraiya said as he arrived. "What's the urgent matter?" "I was in the middle of, very important field work." "Please spare the details," Tsunade replied with a sigh. "It's about Naruko and this whole ramen situation. Turns out you were right, there's something unusual going on with her hormone levels. 10 days ago, her levels were lower than expected, but now they've surged to more than 3 times the norm." "So what does that mean for her?" Jiraiya asked, his expression now more serious. "Right now, she probably feels perfectly fine, maybe even full of energy, but I wouldn't be surprised if she's a bit more easily agitated or energetic than usual." "Great, you haven't found a solution and she's already past the 10-day mark. I really wouldn't want to be the one who has to face her in a sparring match now," he said with a nervous expression. "Is it serious enough that we should tell her?" Tsunade asked, concerned. If things were as bad as they seemed, Naruko needed to be informed so she could avoid unnecessary confrontations. "I wouldn't just yet. Let's hope it stays under control. But if things escalate, she should definitely be warned to steer clear of any intense situations," Jiraiya said, his tone more serious than usual. "All right. I'll bring her in for another evaluation in 5 days. If her levels have increased, I'll let her know. But what kind of consequences are we looking at if she loses control?" "Something very intense. She has enough chakra on her own to rival her earlier transformed states, and if she loses control now, we could be looking at a level that rivals some of the most extreme power releases, something like Might Guy using all the inner gates at once. It would be extremely difficult to manage." Tsunade sighed deeply and leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples with worry. "Not good. She's definitely going to be the source of many headaches for me." "You and me both, Tsunade." "Well, I think it'll be your challenge before mine. I want you to keep an eye on her. Not constantly, just watch her closely if she's training or in a sparring match." Jiraiya nodded reluctantly and walked out, muttering under his breath. Naruko was mid-warm-up in her favorite training spot when a burst of green energy streaked into the clearing. Lee came to a stop in front of her, buzzing with excitement and energy, shifting from foot to foot. "Hey Naruko. Ready to test your spirit of youth? Guy-sensei told me that to qualify for the Jonin level, I need to surpass the strongest Chonin in the village. But in my heart, I believe no Chonin is as strong as you, the most formidable Genin ever." Naruko grinned. "Well Lee, lucky for you I'm in the mood for a good challenge. What kind of match are you thinking?" "A friendly spar. Just taijutsu and weapons. That way, we can truly express our youthful spirits." "Sounds like it gives you the advantage," Naruko said playfully, "but for some reason, I feel like taking you on up close and personal today." "Excellent. Shall we begin then?" "Absolutely," Naruko said, feeling a surge of excitement build inside her. It had been a while since she had looked forward to a spar like this. She slid into a standard stance, right foot forward, hands ready, echoing Lee's familiar pose. Seeing this, Lee smiled and gave her a thumbs up before shifting into his own stance. "Not removing your weights yet?" Naruko asked. "I thought a little warm-up would be nice," Lee replied. "You ran here, and I was already training. That's warm-up enough." Without another word, Naruko burst forward with speed that caught Lee off guard, landing a swift elbow to his stomach. Lee skidded backward, his sandals dragging small lines in the dirt before he regained balance. "Impressive, Naruko," Lee managed between breaths as he steadied himself. "Let's not hold back anymore," Naruko said with a confident smirk. "I agree. I'm ready." Lee undid the flaps on his leg weights and dropped them to the ground. The heavy bar-shaped weights thudded into the earth, partially sinking from their mass. "So those are your new weights," Naruko noted, having heard he'd changed his training gear. "What else do you have in there?" Lee smiled and pulled out 2 connected weights, nunchaku bound with a strong chain. Are these what you meant? He asked, holding 1 weight in each hand and snapping the chain tight to show their strength. Lee then began spinning the nunchaku with practiced ease, over his shoulders, under his arms, and around his body, before stopping with the chain tucked neatly under one arm. Let's see what you've got, Naruko said, bracing herself. With a blur of motion, Lee disappeared from sight and reappeared just inches from Naruko, releasing the nunchaku with the momentum from his sprint. The weight hit Naruko's side solidly and sent her flying back into a nearby tree with a loud crash. Lee winced, hoping the sound came from the tree and not Naruko. The commotion quickly drew attention. Soon, nearly all of the Konoha 11 and Konohamaru's team had gathered to watch, along with several curious villagers. Hinata, who had been watching from the beginning, couldn't help but worry about Naruko after seeing the impact. Naruko slowly stood up, a grin forming on her face as she pulled off her jacket, revealing a black tank top that showed off the results of her years of training. Now we're getting somewhere, she said, determination lighting up her eyes. Wow, where did she get those muscles from? Ino remarked, nearly mesmerized as she observed Naruko's form from the sidelines. Keep it together, Ino, Hinata's right there, Sakura whispered, covering part of her mouth with her hand. But I have to admit, she does look like someone straight out of a fitness magazine, she added with a soft blush. Hey, who's that fighting Lee? Tenten asked, stepping up beside the 2 girls. That's Naruko, Ino replied with a grin. She looks completely different without her jacket, Tenten observed with mild surprise. Wait a second, you thought she looked amazing before you even knew who she was, Sakura teased playfully. I did not. So you're just pretending not to be interested so you can make a move later? Ino joked, nudging her. I never said that. Tenten responded with a flustered tone. But you didn't deny it either, Sakura chimed in with a knowing smile as Tenten's face tinged with color. All right, just focus on the match. Naruko's jacket hit the ground with a solid thud, leaving a clear mark, revealing it was weighted, likely used for intense training. She leaned back to stretch, easing the stiffness from an earlier hit, then ran through a few more warm-ups before taking her stance again. Looks like we're finally warmed up, Lee. Let's get serious, Naruko said with determination, charging at the taijutsu specialist faster than most could track. Although her speed had noticeably improved, it still wasn't enough to surprise Lee. As Naruko aimed a quick strike at his face, Lee blocked it and skillfully swung his nunchaku, striking her side and sending her flying. She landed hard but managed to stand, holding her side protectively as she readied herself once more. Hinata watched from the crowd, her fingers pressed gently against her lips. She winced with each blow Naruko took but knew she wouldn't give up. Naruko had grown immensely, and though her secret had been revealed years earlier during the mission to defeat the Akatsuki, her friends now accepted her fully. Hinata just hoped Naruko wouldn't need to tap into that power. Whenever she did, it always seemed to come at a cost. Impressive technique with your nunchaku, Lee. But let's see what I've got to match it, Naruko said, pulling a scroll from her pocket and tossing it high into the air. As it unraveled mid-air, a burst of smoke appeared, revealing a full-length staff in her hand. She twirled it expertly before bracing it behind her back and crouching into a ready position. She definitely knows how to handle that staff, Tenten remarked with a look of approval. Oh? Which staff are we talking about? Ino asked with a sly smile. Ino. I'm not interested in her like that. Tenten shot back, clearly embarrassed. Sure, whatever helps you sleep at night, Ino said with a playful giggle. Naruko and Lee stared one another down, seemingly waiting for an unspoken cue. A single leaf floated gently to the ground, and the moment it touched, they both vanished in a flash. When they reappeared, Lee was mid-air, preparing a spinning kick. Konoha strong whirlwind. He called out as he launched his attack. To everyone's surprise, Naruko made a single move. She anchored her staff into the ground with the end raised near her head, directly in Lee's path. Sensing danger, Lee adjusted his kick at the last second, soaring over her. Just then, Naruko caught his leg mid-air and used the momentum to flip him into the ground, leaving a clear impact where he landed. Oof. That had to leave a mark, Naruko said, examining the ground. Her tone surprised the crowd. It was rare to hear her so boldly confident in combat. Suddenly, a surge of chakra burst from where Lee had fallen, throwing dust and debris into the air as he stood up. I apologize for this, Naruko, but I need to use everything I have if I want to qualify for the upcoming Jonin test, Lee declared, his energy rising sharply as he tapped into the 8 gates technique. Sounds exciting. Let's see how far you can go, Naruko replied, tossing her staff aside as Lee did the same with his nunchaku. The spectators instinctively stepped back, understanding that things were about to escalate. As expected, Naruko channeled her chakra, drawing from the energy she had long since learned to control. Her features sharpened, longer nails, faint marks across her face, and focused eyes, signs of the immense strength within her. The two fighters vanished once more, only to reappear when their fists collided in the center of the training ground, creating a thunderous shockwave that rippled outward. The onlookers shielded their eyes as the dust rose around them. The two combatants clashed again and again. Each time they were visible, they showed fresh signs of the effort, their speed almost impossible to track. This battle was more than a match. It was a testament to their growth, their friendship, and their resolve to become stronger. You could see them occasionally soaring through the air before landing with agile movements, performing unique gymnastic maneuvers to stabilize themselves and continue their chase after one another. Some of the nearby trees bore the brunt of their intense sparring, with branches snapping off from missed strikes or being used as platforms to launch powerful attacks. Naruko felt she was gaining the advantage, until she noticed Lee leap from a tree in an unusual manner. She recognized it immediately, the Kage Buyo, shadow of the dancing leaf, only he was executing it sideways. Despite knowing what was coming, Naruko realized she couldn't rely on her usual techniques like shadow clones or substitution, since this was a taijutsu-only match. She braced herself, but there was no avoiding it as Lee grabbed her and began the spinning motion of the emote renge, front lotus. Naruko appeared again, but something was different. Hinata could tell immediately, she was falling much faster than before. The impact was immense, shaking the ground beneath her and drawing gasps from the spectators. While the blow was powerful, Lee had taken care not to cause lasting harm, focusing only on ending the match. To everyone's surprise, Naruko began to rise from the crater she had created. Even Lee looked amazed. But it was clear from the distant, unfocused look in Naruko's eyes that something was off. The air around her grew tense as chakra surged wildly around her, spilling from her form in a bubbling aura of energy. "Naruko-chan?" Hinata called out gently, concern flooding her voice. Still, there was no recognition in Naruko's eyes. Lee, standing nearby, approached cautiously. "Naruko, that was an incredible match. You really gave it everything," he said with admiration. Lee. "Step back, she's not conscious," Hinata shouted, realizing something was wrong. Unfortunately, Lee didn't react in time. In an instant, Naruko lunged forward, her chakra-infused punch narrowly missing Lee as it shattered the ground beneath them, scattering debris in all directions. Before he could fully recover, Naruko's hand caught his shoulder and slammed him through a tree, sending pieces of bark flying and leaving Lee momentarily stunned. A voice, filled with unsettling intensity, called out from the blonde ninja now standing next to the injured taijutsu specialist. "Who's next?" "I am," came a calm voice from behind. Naruko turned just in time for Jiraiya to press a chakra sealing tag onto her forehead. Her swirling chakra calmed and retreated back into her body as her eyes slowly closed and she slumped to the ground, unconscious once more. Why did she lose control? "It's been over 2 years since anything like this has happened," Sakura asked, turning toward Jiraiya. "I'm not sure," he responded, hiding his concern behind a thoughtful look. "We'll need to run some tests at the hospital. Guy, take Lee there, he could use medical attention as well." Jiraiya gently lifted Naruko onto his shoulder, and Guy followed with Lee. The crowd silently dispersed, shaken by what they had witnessed. Hinata picked up Naruko's staff and jacket, carefully resealing them into a scroll. "I'm sorry, Naruko-chan. I promise I'll find a way to help you," she thought, her cheeks warming with emotion before she quietly disappeared into the village. 15 days without ramen. It had been nearly 3 days since the sparring match, and neither Naruko nor Lee had regained consciousness. Thankfully, their conditions had stabilized enough to begin medical evaluations, especially for Naruko. Tsunade was hard at work in her lab, joined by her assistant Shizune and later by Jiraiya. "How serious is it, Tsunade?" Jiraiya asked, watching her go over Naruko's test results for the second time. She studied the papers carefully, then sighed as she came to the same conclusion. "It's quite serious. Her chakra levels are unlike anything we've seen. She'll regain consciousness with her mental clarity intact, but there's something we need to be cautious about. Her emotions, especially things like anger or frustration, could trigger powerful reactions if not managed carefully." Jiraiya leaned against the counter, his usual lightheartedness absent. That match was just a friendly spar. And it escalated like that. What if she actually becomes truly upset? "We have to be extremely careful. I'll speak with her when she wakes up and suggest she stay in her apartment for a little while. I need more time to figure out a solution that can help her. You know she's not going to be thrilled about that, Jiraiya remarked. I know, Tsunade said quietly, but it's for her safety, and everyone else's. Well, there's not much else I can do at this point, unless... Tsunade suddenly smiled thoughtfully. Shizune, please go find Anko. I believe she might be helpful in this situation. Yes, Lady Tsunade, Shizune replied, leaving promptly. Tsunade's expression remained curious and focused. Tsunade, what are you thinking? Jiraiya asked, intrigued by her new idea. It's just a little test of sorts. Anko has a unique perspective when it comes to understanding how people think, especially in more social situations, Tsunade explained with a knowing look. Jiraiya, ever the dreamer, seemed momentarily distracted by his own thoughts. But you're not going to be involved in this, Tsunade stated firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. You lack vision. My work is inspired, art in progress. He replied dramatically. Out. Or I'll make sure your masterpiece remains incomplete, she said with a teasing but unmistakably firm smile. That was enough to make Jiraiya pause, go quiet, and vanish in a puff of smoke. Well then, Naruko. Let's see how you grow from this experience. Tsunade stood from her chair and made her way to Naruko's room, waiting patiently for Anko to arrive. Dear family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your support. 6 Path Weeb.